Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're going to take a look at a slightly more budget oriented power supply for modest builds. This is the Corsair CX650. This one at the moment retails in the UK on amazon.co.uk for around about £48. £48.60 was the exact amount I paid for this. The price can fluctuate quite wildly, but don't worry, I'll put some links in the video description so you can check out local pricing to you. This is actually an interesting power supply in more ways than one, and slightly goes some way to point out Corsair's own version of shrinkflation, which I'm sure you've heard that term bandied around, where basically you're paying the same but you're getting a little bit less. Now there's actually a very good reason for that, which we'll come on to a little bit later on in the video. But first of all, we'll go through, do an unboxing, show you what you get, talk about the cables, the lengths, etc., and some of the protections that this particular PSU offers, its ratings, etc., etc. And then we'll go into more of the nitty gritty of about why I think this isn't exactly what you think it is. So let's start off with the packaging. So this is the new modern packaging from Corsair. So this is the CX-series, the CX650 ATX power supply, and it is of course 80 plus bronze rated. In some reviews they've actually stated this is closer to silver rated, but they've decided to keep it as bronze. That comes down to the actual manufacturer of the internals, which again we'll touch on a little bit later. And it also comes with a limited 5-year warranty, which is actually pretty decent for a bronze rated power supply. Generally they tend to be either a year, 2 years, maybe 3 if you're lucky, but 5 years I think is actually a pretty good shout. So at least if you are buying this for a slightly more budget based system, you do have that afforded extra luxury of up to 5 years warranty support for it. On the back of the packaging, usual kind of stuff, so it gives you the dimensions. This one is actually a very compact power supply at only 125mm depth by 86mm and the standard 150mm width. Also, it's got the graphs there for the 80 plus efficiency and also the fan noise level. Also, it's got the output ratings on the side, which we'll take a closer look at later. When you actually open the packaging, you get obviously the power supply itself. You do get a relevant power cable for the wall socket. So we're in the UK, so we get the UK 3-pin plug and the traditional connection there. So that is included. Also, you get a little leaflet, and surprisingly, you also get some screws which conveniently say 4 PSU. Not too sure how you'd get those wrong, but I guess it's nice for people who've not built a PC before, perhaps. Anyway, moving on. So let's take a look at the power supply. So as I said, this is actually a very compact unit. So if you're working in a more restricted space, then this is going to be great for you. So 125mm in length there, standard 150 across, and about 86 high, I believe it was, kind of standard dimensions there. But certainly a very compact unit, primarily due to the fact they've chosen to use a relatively small fan for power supplies. A lot of power supplies these days tend to opt for the 140mm or 135. Those are getting quite popular as well. This has gone with the tried and tested route of a 120mm fan, and of which it's actually quite a quiet one as well. And the fact we did some testing a little bit earlier, again, in this environment it's very difficult to test it. You can probably hear the cat bowl in the background and other noises. So you might want to crank up the volume a little bit so you can listen to it. But here we are, let's have a listen to what it sounds like. So obviously that is just on a kind of like a no load using our thermal take PSU tester, just to give us an idea of the kind of idle volume. Obviously when you put it under load, it's going to ramp up slightly. This is a thermally controlled fan, so as the temperatures get higher, obviously the fan is going to become louder. Whether or not that's going to be appropriate to you, obviously it's going to be more in you testing it actually in your case. I would suggest if you're a little bit unsure about noise levels, maybe order one on Amazon. At least you've got 30 days to return it should you need to. So yeah, potentially that might be an option. So let's take a look at the power connections and also the cable lengths. So the first one is going to be your 24-pin main power connector. This one comes at 600mm long and has got some nice braiding on it. The only thing is with this, if you are building in slightly cheaper cases, which don't have a lot of wiggle room in the back, then the extra braiding on this and also the shrink wrap is a little bit on the thick side, so do make sure that the case you're putting this into has plenty of room in the back for cable management. Obviously, this is a fully captive power supply. You can get the CX650M, which is the modular version of it. So this has all the cables firmly connected. So again, you will have to find some space for cable management. Next one is our EPS connection, or our CPU additional power. So this is the traditional 4+4, which are kind of pushed together into an 8. So you've got 2 plugs on 1 cable. Not always ideal, but for slightly lower end builds, it's going to be absolutely fine. Most people probably won't bother connecting up the second plug anyway. Most CPUs only need the primary one, which can, I believe, deliver up to somewhere near 300 watts. I could be wrong on that. It's either 150 or 300. Either way, it's going to be absolutely fine with pretty much most processors. The length for this one, 500mm, so not particularly long. So in some cases, you may find it struggling. You may actually have to use the extension just to get it to reach your motherboard. So do bear that in mind, it is on the shorter side. Next, we're going to take a look at the PCI Express. So this is just a single cable, but you do have 2 plugs on there, so you can daisy chain. Again, this isn't always recommended, although if you are using this for a kind of budget build, generally your graphics card is going to have a single 8-pin connector. If it's got 2, then possibly you might want to go up the wattage a little bit, so you get 2 dedicated cables. You can daisy chain them, like I said, it has worked. I've used it before many times and it's absolutely fine. Although when you're getting closer to the limitation of what this cable can actually pass through, then you may experience some issues with your graphics card with it not getting enough power. Next up, we've got our accessory connections. So these are SATA plugs. Now on the SATA lead, you have 3 SATA cables, not a lot. One of the lowest I've seen actually on a power supply recently. So you get 3 plugs on there. This one is 400mm from the power supply to the first plug, and then an additional 100mm between the additional plugs. And last of all, we've got the parallel ATA, or Molex as it's otherwise known. You've only got 2 plugs on this one, and the cable itself is 400mm again from the power supply to the first plug, and an additional 100mm between the plugs. So that's it for the cable lengths. I would say they are a little bit on the short side. So again, depending on what case if you're putting this into, potentially you might run into problems. So do your measurements first of all. That is one of the common complaints of this particular model of power supply, that the cables are a little bit on the short side, especially with some of the newer fish tank style cases where you have to route your EPS cable up and over and then round. So yeah, just do bear that in mind and do some measurements first before you make a purchase. Taking a look at the power supply itself, again, very compact. You've got the front section there, so it's got the fan grille, nicely done, nice and easy for airflow. On the sides, you've got some very minimal markings for the Corsair CX650 logo, and that is on both sides. So if you're having it face up or face down, the label will be in the correct orientation. On the top section, you've got the label with the CX650 and also the wattages. And some of you may already notice that the 12-volt rail is actually a little bit on the low side. So this is only putting out 52 amps on the 12-volt rail, which equates to 624 watts, which is a little bit less than obviously what is rated on the box. So this is, as it says, CX650. So it's kind of like a 650 watt power supply. So they have combined some of the other rails, such as the 3.3 and the 5-volt rails, and kind of rounded it up to the nearest denominator. I'm pretty sure back in the day, the CV range actually had like a 625 model, maybe a 570 or something like that. So yeah, it's a shame that they haven't kind of erred on the side of caution and actually called this a CX600 with the 25 watts kind of to play with, rather than upping it to 650. I guess they're looking for market share. On the back, you have got the power input, also the physical power switch, which is quite a nice sturdy one. And also you've got some minimal ventilation, although it seems to be absolutely fine. So now let's address the elephant in the room. So this, as you can plainly see on the box and also the stickers on the unit, this is called the Corsair CX650. Now for those of you that have been around for a while, you will probably know there was a previous brand called the CV range, which was their kind of value range. The CX was an upgrade technically to a better power supply, better internals, etc, etc. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting. This particular version of the CX650 was released sometime in November 2023. Now prior to that, the original CX650 came out around about November 2020, thereabouts, maybe 2019, around that sort of time. So about 5 years ago, this is kind of like a revamped model. Now, a lot of the reviews also stated that there were 2 OEMs which actually produced this power supply, one of which was CWT and the other one was Great Wall. Now between the two, there are pros and cons. Generally, The Great Wall version was deemed as being the better version. It used newer technology, better components, and actually had a code number on the box of RPS0065. Whereas back in the day, if you could purchase a CV650, which in some places you still can, that had the model identifier of RPS0128. So taking that information into mind, the RPS0128 was actually made by Channelwell Technologies, which also make power supplies, the cheaper power supplies for other brands such as GameMax and CIT, for a few that I know of. No doubt they do many others as well. So looking actually on the box of this one and looking at the model number, this one unfortunately is the RPS0128. So effectively, in terms of Corsair's own model numbers and potentially who has actually manufactured it, this is more in keeping with the CV650. So essentially they've kind of discontinued the CV650 here in the UK about a year or so ago. There are still some available, but they're very minimal stocks. They're generally pushing you towards the CX650, which for all intents and purposes, other than possibly being a slightly smaller chassis, would appear to be a CV650 in disguise. Now I should say, obviously I am not in any way, shape or form a power supply expert. I get power supplies in, I review them, I use them, and obviously I take in advice from others and other review sources, etc. to get a balanced opinion, which you should do. But this to me screams of shrinkflation. So effectively you're paying a little bit more money for the CX650, which you think is a better choice, but potentially, depending on the insides, which I'm guessing are going to be the same, being they use the same part number, you're effectively buying a CV650 but paying CX650 pricing. Potentially you get an extra year or two's warranty, which, yep, I guess is a value added. But in terms of the actual components inside, it's a difficult one. And I would suggest if you have actually got a CX650 of your own, you're not sure which one it is, generally you can look at the model numbers. As I said, they'll be on the screen as well, but also the size. So the original CX650 was a larger power supply, around about 140mm, whereas this is 125mm, so the old one was a little bit squarer. So do check that out just to see which one you've got, and obviously do check your model numbers. And potentially if you're purchasing one of these from a supplier and you want to get the better one, or the allegedly better one, depending on who actually made it, whether it be Channelwell Technologies or whether it be Great Wall, the Channelwell Technologies is the one I wouldn't say necessarily to avoid, but it is the lesser of the two in terms of when this originally came out, or when the kind of the two OEMs split. So yeah, it's a difficult one. It's one of those things where I actually bought this and I was like really pleased. I've got a Corsair power supply, I feel really good about it, but after doing a little bit of research and finding out what I now know and looking at the model numbers, it would appear that I've actually bought something which I probably wouldn't have intended to. I probably wouldn't have bought a CV650, but maybe this isn't internally. I don't know. Hopefully someone out there does, or perhaps one of the larger channels will do an in-depth review and compare the two just to see what it is you're actually getting here. So for me, this leaves a slightly bitter taste in my mouth after making a purchase, although having said that, they are still very good quality power supplies. They've got all the usual protections, under voltage, over voltage, short circuit protection, etc, etc, etc. The only thing they haven't got is fan stop protection. So if the fan for some reason dies, the power supply will just carry on until it thermally shuts down. Yeah, it's not the end of the world and completely acceptable for this type of power supply. So yeah, do I recommend this power supply? Well, yes, I kind of do, because I believe obviously Corsair is a big company. It's got a great warranty, it's low noise, the cabling is satisfactory if it's satisfactory for your needs in your build. Just wish it was a little bit better, or the cables were a little bit longer and it was from a different OEM possibly. Anyway, that's enough for this review and unboxing. Hopefully some of you in the comment section will chime in and give us a little bit more information. Maybe you can do a little bit of delving around and let me know. Have you got a CX650 in your rig? If so, what is the model number on the back, the RPS number? I'll be interested to see who's got what and roughly when you bought it. It would be interesting to get some background on it. I think if you're buying one of these now in the UK and most of the European regions and possibly in the States, etc., then it's very likely that you'll be getting the RPS 0128 model, which is done by Channelwell Technologies, rather than the preferable version, which almost hits the silver ratings, which was made by Great Wall. So hopefully you've enjoyed this content. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content of this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and then don't forget to hit the all notifications button. That way you've been notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.